Hey guys, welcome to A Day with a Purpose. My name is Samantha, and I invite you all into this podcast with the hope that you will be inspired, uplifted, and that you will grow in your faith as I talk about real life experiences, my own journey of faith, and everything in between. I hope this podcast encourages you to laugh, learn about God and the Bible, and it shows you that our holy God of the universe loves you and created you with a purpose, and this is a day with a purpose. So without further ado, let's get into the next episode. Hey guys, welcome back to A Day with a Purpose. I want to start off this episode wishing my oldest daughter, Peyton, a happy 19th birthday. We cannot wait to celebrate you this evening. She's at work right now. We actually had decorated the kitchen like we always do, and I tell her every year, I tell all of them every year, I'm like, oh, we're not going to be able to decorate this year. And every year they know that they're going to wake up and have something. The surprise is always what the theme is. So I kind of dropped the ball on Peyton's 16th birthday, and I used decorations that I already had here. Apparently that was very insulting to her, and she thought that was just awful on my part. But I made it up for her the next year when she was 17, and she had a Bigfoot party, and that's going to be hard to top, honestly. I don't remember what the 18th was. I know that she probably does. Oh, 18. Last year it was just gold and black. It was like a gold and black theme, and it was really pretty. Anyways, they're always excited. Like Macy's, I think we had a Morgan Wallen party for Macy, and then I can't remember. I have a bad memory, guys, and it's just getting worse as I get older. So, anyways. Okay, so today, as you can tell by the title, the title of this episode is What Are You Looking For? I want to tell two stories. The first one is my own personal story and experience. And the second one you've probably heard or you're familiar with, but it's a story from the Bible that I really love, and I want to talk about that one as well. So the first one I want to talk about is something that happened in my life that forever changed me and my perspective of how quickly life can change. Okay, so one morning in April 2002, I was getting ready like any other day. I was a sophomore in high school. My brother was a senior, and he would drive us every day to school. So I had just turned 16 2 months prior, and my parents had bought me a car, and I was so excited. It was a little green Saturn. I love that car, and it was a standard. I didn't know how to drive a stick shift yet, so I was going to have to learn how to drive it. So my brother was still taking us both to school, and it only made sense for him to take us. There was no sense in both of us driving. However, I had to learn how to drive mine. So we both get up, we get dressed like we normally do, just like any other day. And there was a little gas station on our way to school, and he stopped and filled up his car with gas, and he buckled. I remember distinctively him getting in and buckling his seatbelt, which was a little bit unusual because he didn't always do that. And we had about a 25-minute drive to school from where we lived, and the road was really curvy. We got at the bottom of the hill. We're about halfway to school, and we're coming up on a straight stretch of road. It wasn't unusual to pass someone if they was going too slow on that road. And there were some kids that went to school with us who got behind us, and my brother knew them. They was friends, and they tried to pass us. Well, my brother, being a teenage boy, decided he was going to race them. So as they pick up speed, I'm telling my brother to slow down, and he tells me to shut up. And as my brother is looking over at them, and he's picking up speed, we come around a curve and we start to lose control, and there wasn't a drop off or anything that was seemingly harmful beside us. There wasn't a lake of water or a bluff or anything. So I wasn't too fearful that if something was going to happen, we wouldn't survive. Worst case scenario, we end up on our side in the car, but I was still nervous. But it wasn't, it didn't look that scary at the time. My brother panics when he sees that he's losing control, and instead of hitting the brake, he hits the gas, and he turns the steering wheel, and I'm not sure if it was panic or what, but then we see that we are headed straight, so we get turned sideways, and we see that we're headed straight for an electric pole, and all of the impact is going to be on me. All the impact is going to be on my side. Now, he could not have done this had he planned it. Like, if you had told my brother, I'll give you $1 million to run your car and hit all of the impact on the passenger side door, like, he couldn't have done it. The way that this hit was just perfectly on my side. And all I can think is, in that split moment, is this it? I can see that we're going to hit it. And when traumatic events happen and people talk about everything being in slow motion, that's how I remember it. Just surreal. And I remember my brother yelling out something that was a curse word and I remember thinking in that split second, I can't believe he just said that and we might be about to meet God. And so I braced myself and I tried to push up off from against my door to try to diminish the impact. And if I had hit my head, I knew that I would have been killed instantly. The impact was that severe. And as soon as we hit, I remember seeing the windshield bust and just collapse and smelling my brother's airbag that had just deployed. And he was afraid that the car was going to catch fire. So he jumps out and he says, "Get out, get out." And I start to get up and I can't. So for a split second, I think it's my seatbelt. So I unbuckle and I realize I can't move or feel anything from my waist or my legs. And I look at him and I say, I can't move. And he goes, give me your arms. So I reach out my arms and he pulls me out and I'm just limp. Just everything, I can't move. I can't do anything. And he lays me out on this pavement. And I can remember just going, I can't feel anything. And everything just felt heavy. Everything in my waist felt hot. And it felt heavy. And it felt like pressure. And it was numb. I couldn't feel anything. And I can remember just thinking, I'm bleeding on the inside. That was, I have internal bleeding. For whatever reason, never did it ever cross my mind that I could be paralyzed. All I could think about was I'm bleeding on the inside. Because I think the warm sensation that I was having made me think that. It made me think there was blood coming out in me. And all I could do is lay on the pavement. And these boys was scared to death. My brother was scared to death. And my brother gets on the phone and he calls my mom. And he says, "Hey, I don't want you to be too alarmed. We've hit a pole, but Sam's okay, but they're going to take her to the hospital." And of course, she's panicked and she's like, "What?" And she doesn't really understand what's going on, but her first question was like, "Are y'all okay?" He's like, "Yeah, we're okay, but Sam's a little banged up." So my mom calls my dad. My dad said, "I knew something was wrong." He gets his clothes on. So to put it into perspective, my mom thinks that she's going down to see that we've had a little fender bender, we've hit a fence post. She is not prepared to see our car wrapped around an electric pole. And when they say, that car wrapped around an electric pole, it literally was in the shape of a C. If you was to look in the car, my door had completely smushed my seat in to just, I don't know, a few inches. I mean, that's how much of the impact had came in on me. They get me to the hospital, and all I keep saying is, am I bleeding on the inside? Am I bleeding on the inside? It's nothing can happen fast enough. You can't, the ambulance can't get there fast enough. You can't get answers fast enough. I know my mom and dad probably felt like they couldn't get to the scene fast enough. I think my mom talked to my brother, and he was she said, "Why do I hear an ambulance?" And he said, "Oh, they're going to take Sam just to make sure everything's okay." Well, she still didn't realize how severe it was until she got down there and seen the car. And then she rushes to the hospital. Her and my dad beat the ambulance there. They do some x-rays and find out that I've broken my pelvis in 2 places. So that's going to require, physical therapy. I spent a week in the hospital there, and then they had to bring a hospital bed to our home. I had to finish the rest of school at home, obviously. I was in a wheelchair for about a month, and then I went from a wheelchair to a walker to crutches to a cane. I can't remember exactly how long it was after how long I had been in the hospital, but they had to take me to Nashville by ambulance to see if I was going to have surgery on my pelvis. They didn't know if it was going to grow back without surgery or if it was going to require surgery. So they was going to send me to Nashville to see. And my mom wasn't allowed to ride with me, so she had to follow behind us. I remember laying in the ambulance, and there was a man and a woman who was back there, and they was just like conversating and just talking about life and their families. And I was asleep for most of the ride, but I can just remember laying there and just thinking about the surreal turn that my life had took from a few days prior, just going to school and being, living your high school life and just not thinking about how just the massive leap that I had took from just going to school, and now you're riding in an ambulance and you're going to see if you have to have surgery. They say that you see shapes in the clouds of what you want to see. So if you want to see a dog, you're going to find a dog. If you want to see a cat, you can and they call it something. There's actually a technical term for this, where your mind will actually make an image of something that you're looking for in the clouds. So I was laying in this ambulance. I could see in the back window, out of the back windows, just thinking about just my situation. And I can just remember thinking, like, I need Jesus. Like looking up in the clouds and wanting, just wanting to be comforted by Jesus. And I literally looked up in the cloud and seen what I perceived to be Jesus. And it just comforted me, and I just kept looking at it, and it was like sideways. So I remember I tilted my head to look at it, but it looked like Jesus. And obviously that was probably just a cloud, but my point is I was looking for Jesus. Like, that's what I was looking for, and that's what I seen. I if I was looking for something else, I probably would have seen something else, but I was looking for Jesus. And that's kind of my point of, what are you looking for when you have really hard, and I am such a sinner. Like, I'm not trying to make myself sound like, oh, I am just this great person who's always looking for Jesus and I'm not. Like, I do often seek Jesus. I've always, from a young age, I've sought Jesus in a lot, but I'm not perfect in any way. I'm not a perfect Christian in any way. There's nobody that's perfect. The only person that was perfect was Jesus. And so I don't ever want to portray myself as like holier than thou, because I'm definitely not. I've definitely made my share of mistakes and continue to do so. I mean, you'll see that the more episodes we get into. Like, I've made tons and tons of mistakes, and I still make tons of mistakes. But I look to Jesus. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is Jesus is a source of help all the time in every situation. Like, he's always somebody you can turn to. And I mess up a lot, and I'm trying to point you to the one that can help you when you mess up, or when you're in a bind, or when you're in a bad situation, or even just when things are going good, when things are going great. Thank him for it, because he is ultimately the one in control of everything. And we should give him praise when we're in the valley, just like we should give him praise when we're on the mountaintop, when things are going good or when things are going bad. During this time, when I got home in my room and I was in a wheelchair, I can remember wheeling into my room, and this was just probably a day or two after I'd been home, maybe a day. And I can remember I had forgot to turn the light on, and I remember thinking, it was such an ordeal to get my wheelchair turned around. My room wasn't very big, but it was just maneuvering my wheelchair that I wasn't even used to yet, and getting it turned around and going all the way. Like, it was such an ordeal just to go back and turn my light on. And I can remember thinking, a few days ago, I could just walk to my light. Like, how much I took that for granted, just being able to walk. I think we all do that. I think we all take so many things for granted, and it's not until it's gone that we realize the impact that it had on our lives, or we realize how blessed we are. That was a situation in my life that it really, to this day, I get very uncomfortable if other people are driving. I don't like not being in control, because it's just a very unease. Clint hates riding with me if we're going to. Sometimes I do really well. Not often, but sometimes I do really good, and I don't tell him, how to drive or anything. And then other times I'm like, slow down. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, I will say this too. There's been times that I've probably saved us from getting in car accidents. So there's probably the same amount of times that I have been overly dramatic, yelled or screamed when nothing was actually happening. However, better safe than sorry. And this is a situation that it opened my eyes to how quick your life can change. And so now that is how I am as an adult. That's why probably I watch all the Datelines and I'm very cautious, because the reality is it can happen to you. It can happen to me. We don't know what life holds. But throughout that whole ordeal, God seen me through that. God was with me through that whole thing. It definitely showed me a new perspective of just how quick life can change. I used what I learned from that, and I try to be so thankful for everything, because you just never know when, your life's going to change. You wake up one day and you think it's going to be normal, and then it's not. And then it's something that just changes your entire life. And even when I was very discouraged, even when I got depressed, because I couldn't do the things that I was used to doing, God was there to lift me back up. And the reason I didn't stay in that state of depression and that dark place is because I would pray to God and I would ask God to help me, and He would. I definitely had times where I would sit there and feel sorry for myself and ask, why did this happen to me? Or just cry in my bed and think, is life ever going to be the same? And to be in a wheelchair for a month feels like a really long time, but that is nothing when you look at people who deal with that every single day. Say you're someone who is bound to a wheelchair. Ask God what your purpose is. Look to God and say, what do you want me to do with this situation that I've been put in? And He will show you, because He has a purpose for you just like He has a purpose for every single person out there. And He can make your situation so awesome and so great. You just have to ask Him to show you how, and you have to ask Him to show you His purpose for your life. The next person I want to talk about was not looking for Jesus, but had an encounter with Him on a day that was like any other day for her as well. This story involves a woman who was going to get water from a well, and you can find this story in John 4:1-28. She was going to a well to get some water when she sees a man sitting there, and this man is Jesus. And Jesus says to her, "Please give me a drink." And this woman recognizes that this man is a Jew, and she's caught off guard that he's speaking to her. One, because she's a woman who is perceived to be a local outcast among the community. And we can tell this by the fact that she came to draw water by herself when it was common for women to go together. Going to draw water would have been like the high point of their day at that time, to catch up on like the local tea, if you will. And this lady, she's alone. And number two, she's caught off guard because she's a Samaritan, and the Jews despise Samaritans, and they didn't socialize with them. And so she tells him, I'm surprised you're asking me for a drink. You're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan. And Jesus says to her, you don't know what God gives, and you don't know who asked you for a drink. If you know, you would have asked me, and I would have given you living water. Now, Jesus is talking spiritually to her. He's talking about what He can do for her soul, and she thinks He's talking about her physical needs. So she asks, "Sir, where will you get this living water? The well's very deep, and you don't even have anything to get it out with." And she says to him, "Are you greater than Jacob, our father? Jacob is the one who gave us this well. He drank from it himself, and his sons also drank from it, and so did their flock." And Jesus answers, "Every person who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give will never be thirsty again. The water I give will become a spring of water flowing inside him. It will give him eternal life." So he's talking spiritually here to her. He's talking about not this water, not this well. She thinks he is at first. And he's talking about what I can offer you as God. You will never want for anything else. The woman says to him, "Sir, give me this water." Talking about the living water he's offering. "Give me this water, then I will never be thirsty again, and I will not have to come back here to get more water." Again, she's thinking physical. Jesus told her, "Go get your husband and come back here." And the woman answers him and she says, "I don't have a husband." And he says to her, "You're exactly right. You don't have a husband. You have had 5 husbands, but the man you're living with right now is not your husband either, and you have told me the truth." And the woman says, "Sir, I can see that you're a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, but you Jews say that Jerusalem is the place where people must worship." And Jesus said, "Believe me, woman, the time is coming when you will not be in Jerusalem or on this mountain to worship the Father. You Samaritans worship what you don't understand. We Jews understand what we worship. Salvation comes from the Jews. The time is coming when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. That time is now here." He's saying, "I'm here. I've brought it. I've brought the Spirit." And he's saying the time is now here, and these are the kinds of worshipers the Father wants. God is spirit. Those who worship God must worship in spirit and truth. And he's telling her the time is coming when you can worship the Father anywhere. It's not going to be just a mountaintop or in Jerusalem. And the woman says, "I know that the Messiah is coming." Again, she doesn't know that this is Jesus. She doesn't know he's the Messiah. She doesn't know she's talking to God. And she says, "I know that the Messiah is coming. And when the Messiah comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus says to her, "He is talking to you now. I am him." The disciples come back from town, and they were surprised because they saw Jesus talking with this woman. But none of them say, "What do you want?" or "Why are you talking with her?" And so they get a little bit of this interaction. As they walk up, they're seeing what he's saying to her, and they're seeing the exchange. They have this ideology of they're not supposed to be speaking to Samaritans. Jesus came and broke down the barriers. And what I love about this particular story is on this ordinary day, this woman walks to the well, and she's not expecting anything, and Jesus shows up in her life, literally. And he tells her, "I have what you're looking for. I have the living water where you will never have to look to a man. You will never have to look to friends. You will never have to look to anything else to satisfy you. I will be everything you will ever need. I will be your peace. I will be your comforter. I will be your love. You won't have to look for love in these other people." He's saying, "I will give you something that no one else can offer." You have to acknowledge you have a spiritual thirst and acknowledge that you're a sinner. And then you have to acknowledge that he's the Messiah, and you have to follow him, and you have to go after that living water. By the time they're done talking with each other, she's running back and she's telling everybody, "I found this guy who has told me everything I've ever done. Come and see." And they come back, and then they said, "Once we have heard him and seen him, we believe you too. He is who you say he is." And it's a pretty awesome story. If you've not read it, it's a great story of grace. It's a great story of Jesus showing up in this woman's life when nobody else was there. This person who thought she was nothing, Jesus shows up and he tells her, "You are worthy, and I'm here for you." He's here for you just like he is the religious leader. He's here for you just like he is the tax collector. He is for you just like he is anyone else. And that is the awesome point of that story is Jesus shows up. He's willing to offer that to anyone who's willing to acknowledge that they have a spiritual thirst, acknowledge that they're a sinner and repent, and acknowledge him as the Messiah, and acknowledge that he is the only way to salvation. He is the only way. You won't get there any other way besides Jesus. I encourage you to go and read that story if you've not. Again, that's in John 4:1-28. But I wanted to talk about both those stories because both of them was just an ordinary day for me and the woman at the well. One of us was looking for God, the other one was not, but he showed up in both. And I hope it encourages you. I hope you look to God today and every day. And I'm going to end the episode here, but I just want you to know God loves you, God is for you, God is with you. And until next time, bye guys.